Sim Tower is quite an iconic game, with instantly recognisable visuals and gameplay. This is a relatively accessible sim game, and doesn't take long to grasp the basics. Painting itself as a business sim and construction game gave it quite a wide audience. However, spend a bit of time with the game, and its origins, its true nature, the game's underlining gameplay becomes apparent. The tower building in Sim Tower is a sideshow in my opinion. The game is ultimately a footfall and vertical transportation simulation. Today then on YesterYear's Mac Games, we'll delve into the classic Sim Tower and build a 100-story, 5-star skyscraper. This is a game from Japan, and after its initial highly successful release under the title The Tower, it was rebranded upon release in the West as one of Maxis' sim games, hitting retail in 1995. All my footage here is based off the Macintosh version. Yutaka Ute Saito created it for the Mac, having become interested in the platform and its graphical capabilities despite its feeble market share in Japan at the time, which was dominated by NEC and MSX derivatives. The game runs on later 68K and all-power PC Macs, requiring 4MB of RAM and 1.6MB of disk space after install. It came on 2 floppy disks, and was boxed with a decently sized manual, as well as the usual registration and warranty cards that were typically packed into big boxes and ignored. For whatever reason, the IBM PC version came on 3 discs, although ultimately both floppy disk versions were eventually replaced by a hybrid CD-ROM which worked on PCs and Macs. The manual itself is genuinely worth reading, especially Ute's foreword. In it, he explains how he came to create the game. Curiosity over how busy elevators attempt to manage the demands of its users drove him to look for books on the subject, but none seemed to exist. He phoned up an elevator manufacturer to ask how they did it, but they had no interest in explaining how their proprietary software worked. For all they knew, he could have been working for a competitor. So, along with programmer Takumi Abe, they set out to make a simulator to find out themselves. With this, they were able to figure out what sort of instructions and setups were needed to create the most efficient elevators for a tower. So, with the commercial release of Sim Tower, Ute stated, "It's your turn to figure out for yourself the way elevators can and should be designed and scheduled." This got very little emphasis in the game's Western marketing. While elevator management was clearly the core gameplay element as far as Ute was concerned, I very much doubt anyone bought this game specifically because of that. It doesn't necessarily need to play a big part in gameplay. It was only just before I built the cathedral on the top floor when I had to start refining elevator behaviour, due to having to remove some shafts. The game only lets you have 24. Sim fans will have been more focused instead on building, with money to manage and objectives to meet. It's a shame to say this, but the game's original purpose was most likely lost on the vast majority of the people that played it. Still, it's to the game's credit that it was fun on multiple levels. A lot of others out there have trouble being fun on one. Start a new game then, and the player is greeted with a 2D side-on view of nothing. An empty plot of land in the middle of a city. It's here that work can commence, placing rooms on top and next to one another. Every tower starts with a lobby floor. Holding Alt down on the Mac makes it 2 stories, while Alt and Shift bumps it to 3. There's no functional benefit to building a multi-story lobby, it's purely aesthetic. There are only 2 major building options available at the beginning, offices and condos. Condos are sold to a family of Sims, who live in them until bad conditions drive them out, or the player demolishes it to make way for something more useful. This is by far the least profitable thing to place in the tower, as the player only gets paid once, when the family move in. Now this game does feature the ability to change the price that a condo is sold at. However, if this is to be amended successfully, the player will have to wait until the middle of the night in order to do so. It's as if Sims are camping outside, waiting for a condo to become free. Place one of these down during the day, and it's snapped up instantaneously. You'll have no time to raise the price. During early game, when every penny counts, this is quite annoying, although quite amusing on reflection. Everyone's gone to bed to get some sleep. It's been a long, noisy day, and it's time for peace and... Oh, for goodness sake, that's the 3rd straight night. The other thing you can fill an early tower with are offices. In comparison to condos, you get a much smaller fee. Offices contain a lot of Sims during the day who will dogpile into the elevator in the morning and shove off between 5 and 7 PM. These two spikes in traffic are when your transport system will be put to the test. Sims line up at the elevator and gradually go pink and then red with unmitigated fury if they're left standing around like lemons for too long. During early game, problems can be avoided by having enough elevator shafts servicing an appropriate number of floors. A lobby can be placed every 15 levels, which seems to act as a sensible enough divider for the floors that regular elevators service. These lobbies can be connected with express elevators, which become available once the tower hits a population of 1,000. Typically then, a Sim arriving to work will show up on the ground floor, grab an express elevator to a lobby further up the tower, and then wait for a standard one that services their target floor. Alternatively, if the room is within 3 destination floors of the lobby and stairs have been built, they may opt for some exercise and walk up and down those. The game does demand a bit of common sense in regards to the placement of buildings. Space needs to be left between different types so that they don't annoy one another. A noisy office next to the condo will irritate the residents and lower its value immensely, and I imagine that visitors to a hotel room would be less than pleased if they found their bed shared a wall with a cinema. The most typical style of building a tower seems to be spanning entire layers with one type of building. So the bottom few floors may be shops, cafes and restaurants, while further up are followed by lots and lots of offices and hotel rooms. It has to be said that there isn't a great deal of variety in terms of what makes up the bulk of the tower. There also isn't much variety in what a tower can look like. You can't build 2 towers next to each other. The game fills in the gaps between them automatically. The only aesthetic flair that I could think of was to slope the sides of the building like this. There are, however, quite a few building types that you only need a handful of, from party halls to shops, from undemolishable hotel room cleaners, be careful with these, to security centres that will look for bombs left in the tower by terrorists demanding ransoms. Sims will range from workers, shoppers, partygoers, VIPs who need to enjoy their stay for a tower to progress to the next star rank, and Santa, who shows up occasionally at the end of Q4. There he is, flying towards the tower. The core objective of Sim Tower is 100 floors, 5 stars, and a cathedral at the top. Progressing to 2 and 3 stars will provide multiple new buildings to pick from and place down. 4 stars enable the metro station, which is necessary for the 5th. And it was here that I realised I would have to revert to an earlier save. The metro station needs to be placed on the bottom floor. In addition, it needs to be the first thing placed on the bottom floor. Under no circumstances should you ever drag an elevator down there, or make a floor on it first. Doing so makes the station unplaceable, and poof goes the ability to progress to the 5th star. Good thing I occasionally rename my save file, or I'd have been back to the start. Having played this game through to the cathedral, placing hundreds of offices and hotel rooms along the way, I have to say, it is a bit of a chore to progress through the later game. I got the metro station and enjoyed setting up an underground shopping centre, but afterwards I still needed 4,500 more heads in the tower to progress, and there was no new way to do that. There isn't really an interesting or creative way to go about getting the most from the tower either, as compatibility with the transportation system is all I could think about. It's the most effective if every sky lobby has its own express elevator, with the 14 floors that it services containing a mixture of hotel rooms and offices, which ease congestion, as the occupants use the elevators at different times. Each 15-floor wedge of the tower can be a replication of the last. There's no reason to deviate really, and once you progress past the early game, there's no waiting around for more money. The deluge of simoleons make the financial side of the game completely redundant. Sim Tower did well enough for itself to get a sequel a couple of years later. Ute Tower addressed the limited variety to a degree, not to the extent that I feel it could have done with, but it was definitely a step in the right direction. This one was published by Sega rather than Maxis, hence why the Sim part of the name dropped off. Ute Saito's relationship with Sega continued after that, and his next game, Seamen, was initially an exclusive for the Dreamcast. If I were to sum up Sim Tower in one word, it would be charming. Watching the elevators pelt up and down, transporting the Sims to where they need to go, is pretty cool, and a busy and fully built tower is an impressive sight to behold. Some of the gameplay elements that I mentioned are a little rough around the edges, and the all-important elevator management is done in an ugly menu that is pretty tricky to get your head around, even with help from the manual. But these frustrations are trivial when balanced against everything that makes this game fun. Copies fly around often enough on eBay. I only paid a couple of quid for my one. So, that will just about do it then for this edition of YYsMG. Do share your thoughts in the comments or on the Twitter. You can find me, unsurprisingly, at YYsMG. For further old Mac game reviews, do check out some of my other videos. Business management and simulation fans may well enjoy the one I did on Capitalist Pig. Thanks for watching then, and see you next time.